Hi everyone, I'm Alona Stein, co-CEO at Reblond VR Agency. We're here at EBC 10, meeting here today Gillian Lynch, and CEO of the European branch of Gemini. And hi Gillian, how are you?
Hi, lovely to meet you. Pleasure to meet in sunny Barcelona.
Sunny Barcelona, it's one of my favorite cities.
I'm very busy.
Very busy. How do you enjoy the event so far?
Brilliant. There's a great atmosphere here today actually, and a really good mix of companies, B2B, B2C. So yeah, really great atmosphere.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about regulation and what's happening in the sea right now. If we're looking at Nika, if we're looking at other stuff, you'd like to hear a take on things.
So in Gemini, from day one, the founders, Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, were convinced of two things. One, that crypto had a part to play in the financial ecosystem, but equally important, for it to have its true place, it needed to be regulated. So we've been balancing regulation and innovation from day one. It's really in our DNA. Since the twin start of the company, we've always sought permission, not forgiveness, and worked with regulators. And I think we're really happy that the EU has really stepped up and has really become a global leader when you look at a regulation. And we have Mika to keep us busy for the next 2 years. But I think the hope is that other regions will follow suit. I think what we've seen in other regions like the States is that you have regulation by enforcement. And someone said to me really recently, it's like the analogy, you're driving a car down the motorway and you don't know the speed is, but you're pulled over by the cops. So I think really having those guardrails is really important. And it's something that we've always wanted for the industry, and it's great to see that happening. And from day one, it's been part of how we do business. So balancing, doing the right thing, investing in compliance, risk, operation resilience, all the core pieces of your business, but then balancing that with the innovation of really good, clean customer experiences. So achieving that balance has been something that the twins have instilled in everybody in the culture of the company for the last decade.
Right. So putting regulation aside for a second, if we're talking about adoption as a whole, how do you compare what's happening in the US versus Europe, and where do you see things going?
Interesting. When Gemini did a State of Crypto report about two and a half years ago, and when we did that, it was very clear that the pace of adoption was much greater in the States and in Asia, but very much in the States, more so than it was in Europe. But we've just completed another one, and the pace of adoption has absolutely caught up in the EU.
Wow.
We're seeing between 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people now owning crypto, and that's in the EU. I think the US has probably slipped a little bit, and I think that comes down to regulation. Actually, when you regulate by enforcement, it's very difficult for companies to offer their services and to invest in a country. And I think we've seen the US slip a little bit. And now, interestingly, the same report that we've done also show that people get out of crypto. They're just holding, but you don't have a lot of new joiners. So we've seen that happen in Europe. And I think there's some countries in Europe are outstripping. So if you look at France, for example, 1 in 4 are now owning crypto. So I think what you're seeing is, I think it's global, actually. So you're looking at 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people owning crypto. But I've no doubt the States will catch up. I think what we're seeing in the States with crypto becoming an election issue, that's monumental. What most of the industry want is whoever gets in or gets elected is pro-crypto. And I think with that in place, I think the States will really catch up again, and I think it just power adoption further.
So we're almost a year into the Bitcoin ETFs after it has received this green light. What's your take on where things are going?
I think when we're talking about regulation and the states and the SEC, it's been regulation by enforcement. So I think it was a huge move to have the spot BTC ETF approved almost a year ago. And I think you saw the pent-up demand for that product with the huge inflows. And I think like anything that even with traditional equities, you have inflows and outflows. So we saw a period of outflows. But I think in the last week, you've seen those inflows really come strong again. And that's great to see. And even in the last week, there's the option ETF has been approved. So I think what we're really seeing is that the regulator in the States is finally going, okay, there is a demand and we need to try and start meeting that demand. And then interesting, so in Europe, we've had ETPs for far longer. And the take-up has been less than in the States. But I think there's greater access to crypto products in Europe and Asia than there would have been in the States. So I think what you're seeing in the States is an unleashing of a pent-up demand. And I think what we're seeing in Europe is more the considered, but there's no reason why it wasn't grown to the volumes that we would see in the States. But I think overall for the industry, you're now seeing it's following the pathway of traditional finance, really, and it's just making sure that traditional finance products now have the crypto element to it.
It's been extremely interesting speaking with you today.
Thank you so much.
Anything you've seen on the floor here, or when walking around that caught your attention?
For me, it's immediate when you come in, the vibrancy. And I think I was at conferences last year, and we were in the depths of a crypto winter last year, and you could feel it. Like I'm in crypto 3.5 years, and I could feel it last year. Whereas this year, I don't think we're out of the crypto winter yet, and I think we're still in even just economically, globally, we're just in an uncertain time. But I feel a vibrancy here today. And Barcelona brings that with it as well. It's a very vibrant city. But the people in here, like I see a passion. And like there's a great mix. There's a mix of B2B, B2C. And I think also with blockchain conferences, it's the little stages, the ones that are bringing you through to kind of new innovation. I think they're fascinating to sit in with.
Thank you so much for your time.
Not at all. Thank you
for joining us.